The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds. Welcome to Sarah's Country for another week, Monday through Thursday, every night broadcasting across the world on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, as well as a live radio feed on farmersweekly.co.nz/Sarah's Country. Sarah's Country is, of course, about the matters that matter most to you. And the place you know you can come as the day turns to dark to interact with our 4 live guests. Ask them questions in the comments below, participate in the poll, and if you're watching on farmersweekly.co.nz, you can participate in the comments underneath the video player. So farmersweekly.co.nz/Sarah's Country. Note, if you're having any trouble with the streaming of this, we do have everything available on demand on video on Farmers Weekly's YouTube channel and on Sarah's Country on podcast. Everywhere. I like to be all things to all people. Well, at least we're trying. How about that sleeping on Sunday, eh? Daylight savings in autumn is one of my favourite times of the year. It absolutely rocks. This morning I was able to get up early and actually go for my walk because it was getting too dark by about 7:30. Do you think that postponing daylight savings should have happened because of COVID-19? Or are you with me and you love daylight saving? Give me a thumbs up if you love daylight saving, or no, an angry emoji below. I just want to test out your thumbs are working, because remember, Sarah's Country is about you. It's an interaction with you. That's why we go live, okay? So I want to be able to make sure that you're working. Thumbs up, love daylight saving, angry face if you hate it. Joel, what do you reckon? Do you like daylight? I mean, do you do daylight saving in Ireland?
Yeah, we do daylight saving. It's just a wee bit different, so it is. So I'll get me on camera.
I want to see. Everyone wants to see the pretty Irishman.
There we go. Yeah, we do daylight savings, but we do it like a week or so early or late. So back home it changed, and then all of a sudden changed back.
And then changed again.
And then changed again. So I was like 12 hours between me and my parents, and then it changed again, and now it's like 11 or something. It's just, yeah.
You could have landed yourself in Queensland, Joe. You realise they don't have daylight saving at all because they like their curtains to not fade.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, so they don't want any more sunshine, so they don't do daylight saving at all. So Aussies all up to wazoo as well.
But that doesn't make any sense.
No, nothing the Australians do makes sense, and in particular, how they're responding to COVID-19 is my opinion. Look, our poll tonight reflects goodwill versus economic viability of some of New Zealand's most important rural events. I do appreciate that Field Days at Mystery Creek has come out and acknowledged the economic impact of their exhibitors' sales incomes being dramatically affected by the postponement of the major June event. And they have presented a virtual option called Field Days Online. If you don't want to participate in this virtual event as an exhibitor, and then this is obviously something you didn't sign up to when you've already paid your expensive site fees, then you do not get your site fee back until they decide whether it's cancelled at the end of the year or simply postponed. So the poll tonight, do you think it's okay for Field Days to hold on to exhibitors' money till the end of the year? I would love to hear from any exhibitors left out of pocket. Comment on your experience below. Is this dramatically affecting you? It's not just the site fees, is it? You know, it's the expensive accommodation because it's so short in Hamilton. And the flow-on effect, the marquee companies, there's a lot of people out of business at the moment, and anything to be able to put some money back in their pockets should be happening. Field Days, I'd like to hear from you as well. So that's our poll tonight on Farmers Weekly Facebook page, and of course on farmersweekly.co.nz/Sarah's Country. I'd like to hear from you. Right, these daylight savings are good for longer Zoom parties. And I want to know, has anyone checked out that house party app yet? It seems really quite cool. You go on a virtual street crawl. You've just simply sign up to a house party. If you know someone in another party, you can apparently jump across. It's kind of like a bar crawl where you're not confined to your own circle of friends. You might be getting kind of sick of them by now. I'm sure you're not. So I heard that Hamish from Hamish and Andy, he set up something pretty cool. He's just randomly dropping into Zoom parties. So people don't know. There could be their book club. And he's a funny bugger. Hey, look, honestly, and please, can you invite me along? I'm looking for some new friends. No, I'm just joking. Send me in my DMs. If you're having a Zoom party, I want to come along this Friday. I'll just drop in, just randomly. You won't even know. The seriousness of the reason why we're talking about this is Zoom this, Skype that, Hangouts this. And if you're really trying to get your head around what is all this online technology, after 7:20 tonight, we have Jonah Duckle from Abacus Bio on Sarah's Country. And he actually reckons that this is jolting us into something that's good for the future of farming, utilising technology to extend farming knowledge and research across regions and use our time more efficiently. I mean, if you're a farmer, you could probably just constantly full-time attend field days and workshops. We all know that. At 7:30, I've decided I'm going to head home. Virtually, I'm crossing live into my own house to catch up on the little sister, make sure she's got the fire on. No, in all seriousness, Ellie Perriam, my little gorgeous young sister, is joining us to discuss Will to Live. And of course, the types of issues she's fielding through the Will to Live page in these real extreme times, and how to navigate your headspace or the people around you to get through, especially now heading into the winter. Your questions for Ellie in the comments below, and in particular, I know she gets a lot about how to support someone struggling with depression. And then to end the show at 7:40, we hear from Lockie McGilvray on the collaborative support work happening in the Hawke's Bay to help farmers in need of much needed water and feed for livestock. Now, after the short video from Global HQ, we will get one of our viewers' questions from last week answered on how our US beef markets are doing and what level of impact the backlog at our processors and the closure of sale yards are having on our sheep and beef sector with Mel Crode from Agri HQ. This is Sarah's Country. Well, Sarah's Country is not about me. It's about you, the audience. And I'm always calling for what information and questions you have at home that you want to find out on the show. So easily to email me, Sarah with an H at perriammedia.com, or slip into the inboxes on social media, both mine and, of course, Farmers Weekly. Last week, Stuart from Pu'arururu wants to know about our international markets for bull beef. So we're joined on the phone from Hawke's Bay, Agri HQ analyst Mel Crode, to take Stuart's and all of your other questions about what to expect in the up-and-coming sheep and beef markets, both here at home and, of course, overseas, during this crazy time that's ahead of us. And Mel joins me now. Mel, Stuart's question was, with the extreme outbreak of the virus, particularly in the States, he wanted to know about the USA's ports. Are they going to remain open to our New Zealand product?
Yeah, hi Sarah. Look, at this stage they are still operational. There are one or two ports that have scaled back operations, but what we are hearing is that often containers are just taking an extra couple of days to exit the US terminals, and that's just about the containment measures really, with meat inspections and cold stores being a little bit understaffed. Ports in the US are essential, and it's all about keeping their staff healthy. So At this point, we are still seeing exports heading to the US from New Zealand. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a great market there in the last wee while. New Zealand beef exports to the US are geared towards the food service sector, and so it means that we've missed out on that boom that we've seen in the retail sector, particularly for mince in the last couple of weeks with the US consumers stockpiling the fresh US beef that they can freeze down at home. And New Zealand's only a very small player in that retail market, predominantly just for prepared frozen beef patties. But that retail market we saw 2 weeks ago topped 900 million in the US. And most of that was fresh ground beef, or mince as we more commonly refer to it. So we have seen a little bit of short-term support in that imported beef prices into the US, just as end users looked for a bit of pricing relief because the imported price was trading at such a discount. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not overly great there, with 2/3 of the country now in lockdown and food service taking a real big hit.
What about China? How's that looking?
Yeah, look, China is coming back online. We are seeing encouraging signs there in terms of sales, more for the lower value goods, be it lamb, mutton, or the manufacturing beef. The mutton is starting to move well. We're not yet seeing that in farm gate returns increasing yet, but I guess what it does reflect is that consumers are starting to watch their purse strings. We saw it with the global financial crisis, that they tend to move to the lower value items where they can get more for what they spend. And we're seeing that we are starting to see the restaurant trade open up a little bit in China as well. But of course that comes with its own implications with regards to seating within restaurants, and also just getting the Chinese consumer feeling a little bit happy and positive about returning to the restaurants. But yeah, absolutely, we're seeing encouraging signs there, and I guess that is helping offset what we are seeing in some of our other key markets, particularly the US, as I've mentioned, for beef, and also Europe, where things aren't just looking quite so rosy at the moment.
And of course, talking China, one of our major markets for our mutton, how's that looking?
Yes, mutton is moving well, and I guess that like I said, it just comes back to it being at that lower priced item that is moving through retail, and we're starting to see better volumes moving. It's not a big time of the year back here in terms of mutton throughput at our processing plants, but what we have seen is that the drop-off in the lamb kill through March actually encouraged a lot more mutton into the processes that it had been sort of sitting, waiting on farm to be processed. So we have started to see that coming through, which will be of great relief to a lot of farmers.
Talking about lamb, it's dipped under $7 a kilo. That's certainly not the time of year for it to be heading south. It's usually heading north, heading into the winter. There's going to be some long-term implications of this shift?
Yeah, look, I think there potentially will be. Typically, farm gate lamb prices start their ascent from here to peak in late September, early October. Last week, we did see the first signs of pressure coming into the system, with prices easing into this week. What we have to understand is that meat companies are wearing the overheads from plants not running as efficiently as they would like to, just due to the new restrictions. So there's extra processing costs there. And also, we've seen that softening in the in-market pricing for middle cuts. And that's just a flow-on of the drop-off in restaurant trade, travel and tourism in key spots through Europe and North America. What it does tend to do, particularly at this time of the year, is knock farmer confidence, and that can extend right through into the store market. We've only seen once in about the last 5 years of downside in lamb prices at the farm gate beyond March. So you can see that the trend is very much for prices to continue to lift from here on in, and that is what farmers are used to. again, I guess 1 week is not enough data to suggest that this is a trend, but it is something that we need to be aware of. Current North Island farmgate prices are close to 30 to 40 cents a kilo back on this time last year. The South Island price is slightly ahead of this time last year, but the outlook is certainly nowhere near as clear-cut as what we were looking at a year ago. Last year, markets were humming, and they could have easily taken more land than what we could produce. But what we're seeing at the moment is that if our higher valued cuts aren't moving, it leaves it all up to the lower value items to balance it out, and that's where it becomes a challenge for the meat companies and exporters, I guess, to maximise returns. And at the moment, just with that pressure starting to come into the farm gate prices, it would suggest that the lower value items are not yet offsetting what we would see from those high value cuts into that restaurant trade.
Yeah, especially when you've got McDonald's shut, makes it a bit harder. Of course, we've had a lot of questions come in about what's ahead for the processing backlog due to COVID-19 and the wait times to get space. What are you hearing from the processors?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I guess it really highlights the timing of the season. No meat company wants to be slowing down processing throughput, especially right now with the drought still lingering for many and winter getting closer and the need to get those carrying capacity rates down to winter levels or even lower than winter carrying levels. It is a side effect of having to implement the protocols to keep the staff within those plants safe, and it's something that we need to follow. I think we're really lucky that processors and staff within the plants have worked so quickly to implement the changes, because in other countries we're seeing reports of potential 2-week stand downs and closures of plants should they get a positive test, or bigger breaks in order to implement their own strategies. So I think we've been really lucky that we've been able to keep plants operational. It probably doesn't feel like that to some farmers facing really extensive delays, and unfortunately we've got 2 short processing weeks this week and next, either side of Easter, and then again at the end of the month for Anzac Day. So it is going to put additional strain on capacity and production. We are hearing of wait times extending out as far as 6 weeks. Potentially that could change by next week, because I know processors are looking at ways of trying to fix these backlogs that are occurring. But honestly, with the timing, we look at the autumn cow kill at this time of the year, where the national weekly kill rates for cattle can lift to over 80,000 head in early May. We were sitting at around 70,000 head per week back in March, when capacity wasn't as restricted as what we're seeing at the moment. So basically it's just going to mean that the cattle season is going to extend well into June, and it depends what it looks like even then, if we're out of lockdown or if we've got new procedures in place. I guess for lamb in parts of the North Island, the kill is almost current, just given the intensity of the earlier kill rates. We've yet to see it seasonally taper off in the South Island, but we are seeing more mutton flowing through into the processing plants as well. So look, Sarah, communication is just key. If you've got stock to get killed before winter, then you need to communicate with your meat company rep or your meat company, just so that they can see what's coming through, particularly with those regions that are still battling very dry conditions and really need to see that stock shift off farm sooner rather than later.
So more taking action as opposed to reactive week by week. Having that long-term planning with your agent can be key in guaranteeing space.
Absolutely, yeah. We've just all got to put everything on paper and I think more so at the moment too, because we're seeing a lot of the bookings for stock into the plants coming forward. Now, I do wonder if that's just to combat some farmer uncertainty that, no one really knows what the landscape's going to look like in 3 or 4 weeks, so why not try and get them off farm now? And that's sort of magnifying the issue as well, as well as, what we've spoken about, the slowdown in demand and some pressure coming on prices in our key markets.
What about how the weaner fairs have gone despite the sale yards closing down?
Oh, look, again, it's just really bad timing. Sale yards should be humming with weaner fairs right now. And, the weaner fair selling system extends from sort of mid-February to early May. Some of the big sale yards that Agri HQ covered prior to the temporary closures, Fielding would expect to see 16,000 weaners pass through there in any given season, 11,000 head through Temuka, plus you'd have all the on-farm auctions and all the other really important and pivotal sale yards. What we're seeing at the moment is most are opting to sell in the paddock. The agents are on the phone to repeat buyers or loyal clients, and a lot seem to be moving that way. Vendors are being realistic in asking prices and what they're going to receive. And it seems to be, from what we've heard, quite a painless procedure at the moment. Still probably not as good as having that void demand in the sale yards. And I guess, too, the online selling systems are also gathering some more momentum. But unfortunately, we've got a little bit of an overhang of weaners because a lot weren't sold in those earlier fairs just because of the drop in the prices that we saw right from the get-go. And in many cases, particularly in the drought regions where feed is still very low, breeding cows are often now being offloaded into the processors, which is heartbreaking for a lot of those farmers. But, for some, taking a low weaner price that they're looking at instead offloading cows just to free up some space and take the pressure off those feed requirements. So, we've seen a really tough weaner market develop. It was hard going right from the start, I guess, because of the lack of feed, market uncertainty, and for a lot of farmers not being able to get finished cattle killed to free up space. So we have seen weaner prices significantly lower than this time last year, and that's still the current trend.
It's going to have a real major dent on our breeding numbers in years to come, unfortunately. That is a senior sheep and beef analyst for Agri HQ, Mel Crode. Alrighty, so it's time to catch up on our poll. Our poll tonight is, do you think it's okay for field days, this is National Field Days at Mystery Creek, to hold on to exhibitors' money until the end of the year? If you're just joining us on the stream, exhibitors have had an email from Field Days to ask if they want their site fees refunded. How do they go about that? They have replied saying that as they are unable to know when the government's restrictions on mass gatherings may ease, they will be reviewing potential postponement dates for the physical event every 3 months until the end of the year, and at which time, if they're unable to resume the physical event until June next year, they'll reconsider payments, refunds then. Do you think this is fair? This is a goodwill issue. Field Days know that they have a wait list of exhibitors, and if you kick up a fuss, you might not get your site back. But also, too, it does pose the economic impact it is having on our event industry as well. I am certainly not making light of that. There's certainly a lot of people in the wedding industry that are being affected, but also it comes down to your local gym as well. I'm hearing some people's gyms are saying, nope, sorry, we need to keep taking your membership to keep afloat. My gym in Lincoln said, no, don't worry, we're putting it on hold, which I thought was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, tell us in the comments below, do you believe that it's fair? Are you an exhibitor that has been affected? We want to hear from you. Our poll is certainly saying predominantly that no, it's unfair that Field Days need to give them their money back. They are holding Field Days online as an option, but that means you have no choice. That is effectively the only other option. I want to hear from you, and I'd love to hear from the Field Days team as well about obviously the difficult decision that goes on behind the scenes to make those sorts of calls. Now, talking about an exhibitor making the most of this Field Days postponement, had some pretty funny merchandise that was pre-prepared. This was got nothing to do with the COVID-19 lockdown. Greenlee Meats. They actually landed with 1,000 tape measures with Greenlee on them, and Tony Egan wonders if they should still send the tool out, as it's pretty good now for helping people measure social distancing. I saw this on the old book, New Zealand's tool for measuring social distancing. If you can't see that, that is 1.5 sheep is 2 metres to keep apart. Our next guest on Sarah's Country knows how to bring the distance of physically not being able to attend these events closer to farmers around the country. This is Sarah's Country. Well, people are holding book clubs, birthday parties, piano lessons, and of course regular meetings from within their farmhouses on Zoom, Google Hangout, or Skype. I must say I've got some comments here under the post on Facebook that Kate Taylor said that we have to be quite careful about this house party app. Apparently, it's a hacker's dream, and that they're able to. Mackenzie has said that they've worked out how to be able to access people's bank accounts. So these apps aren't tried and true. They're brand new to the market. So please do be conscious of them. Things like Skype, of course, has been around a long time, and Zoom. I tell you, its share prices have certainly zoomed up. Can I just give a wee plug, though, about how awesome these parties are on? I'm actually hosting in a glam frock with bubbles this Wednesday night at 8:30 that I want to invite you all along to attend. It is the official launch of the Shepherdess magazine. We've got over 100 registered, so check out the details on their Facebook page. 8:30 this Wednesday night. You can register to join the party with rural women and men, more than welcome, around the country in their glamorous frocks, celebrating the launch of this awesome new event. So head along to Facebook to check that out. But it's the time efficiency of not having to travel to meetings. You can't blame traffic anymore. And collaborative workshopping from people around the country, not people who can physically get there on the day, that is appealing this new technology to farmers and the industry for a new way of extension. Abacus Bio is taking a lead in moving RMPP groups rapidly online and working to bring other conferences, workshops and courses online. So we're heading to Dunedin to catch up with Jonah Duckle from Abacus Bio to discuss this new technology. Firstly, Jonah, for those watching who you lost or I lost at Zoom, can we just back the truck up and explain how does this technology work?
Yeah, so what we're talking about mostly here is just video conferencing technology, which has really only gotten to the point where it's really usable on broadband internet connections with modern laptops and HD cameras and things like that. In really the last 5 years or so, it's we've been Skyping and doing video calls for much longer than that, but the technology has been sort of painful to use for quite some time. Whereas tools like Zoom and getting on Google Hangouts and this House Party app, I confess I haven't tried House Party, are all better experiences for more people to connect to each other. And that's really where the magic is starting to happen, is when you can get more people collaboratively working together on these tools.
Can you talk us through how Abacus Bio is, how they're helping with this technology shift?
Yeah, so Abacus Bio is a firm in Dunedin that has a strong farm consulting component and also does a lot of breeding indexes and kind of genetic selection, genetic improvement programs for a lot of international producers around the world. We have a vibrant farm consulting practice and quite a few RMPP facilitators who've been running some groups around the region that they tend to get together with in person for a lot of the meetings. But when we heard that lockdown was coming, we kind of rapidly moved to try technology that we had all been experimenting with and playing before, and saying, hey, let's get our groups together and let's get them talking and collaborating and getting together, and let's set the bar low. Let's just get them connected and talking to each other, because people are stuck at home, they can't go out and talk to each other. And we just wanted to kind of start getting people connected together through these tools. And Abacus is really about understanding people and how people make decisions, so that we can get better better technology, better science onto farm, getting through the sort of human challenges of understanding how to work better, how to bring a little bit of new science or expertise or technology onto the farm for economic and social benefit to the farmers.
I know one of the frustrating parts of our sector, and Joan, I understand you have had a long history of working in the agriculture industry back in the States as well, is adoption of science and adoption of technology. How have you seen that explode when you're sort of forced to?
So I think it's really interesting. Farmers tend to adopt a lot of technologies that are useful to their farm business. In the States, I'm familiar with big broad acre systems and, 6-figure combine harvesters and things like that change the game. If you can drive them more efficiently to the millimeter on your field, you can get more crop out. So farmers do adopt technology, all the time. I think it's an interesting case here with this kind of video technology that when forced to use this particular technology, a lot of people are going, oh wow, why haven't I used this before? And there just hasn't really been the impetus to use it before. So I think the history of farming. I went to an agricultural school, Purdue University in the States, that had guys who would rip out a welder and fix anything metal that was broken. They're complete technology nuts. When you find people running $100,000 pieces of equipment, you've got to really understand how things work. And I think this is just a new piece of the puzzle. I think you see a lot of farmers doing targeted marketing. I've seen some really interesting things going on with small producers that I'm used to going to the farmers market here, using Facebook and Twitter and anything they can find to say, hey, we're still open, we're still an essential service, we can get produce to you. So I think all of that is part of the technology ecosystem that really brings you the competitive advantage in this farm marketplace today.
Yeah, and we had last week on the show the Make It To You team that got New Zealand's first online farmers market off the ground, utilising pretty poor, not poor, but not the best broadband out of rural North Canterbury. So that was really exciting to see. How do you think we can actually bring our policymakers that usually don't really want an excuse to leave Wellington and our rural communities closer together on some more collaborative decision making, especially with policy making?
Well, one of the really interesting things that was part of one of these discussion groups that I was just kind of sitting in as a co-facilitator, kind of helping to make sure the technology moved along, that people are saying was, this gives us the ability to not have to drive into town the 90 minutes, the 3 hours, whatever it is. It also gives us the ability to say we want to run a forum that involves people on the North Island and the South Island at the same time and syncs them up to have conversations. So I think it's, it's early days, but I think it's a really exciting possibility to build some forums and some conversations and ways in which we can get both the policymakers and the kind of rural producers and farmers together in the same virtual rooms, facilitate workshops and sessions. One of the amazing things to me using this technology is that is relatively recent. Again, in the last 3 years or so, you've been able to take a whole group of people and say 100 people on a call and break them into small groups of 4 people each and say, introduce yourself to each other and have a chat. And then 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, you say, okay, we're going to mix it up and have, groups of 4 mix up again and meet someone else. And these are all kinds of things that emulate. They're not the same as going to, field days and seeing the person you've known for 30 years and bumping into them. But they're different ways that we can still mix and meet people and find common threads and build the future together.
Yeah, and as we're talking there, potentially field days online being a new virtual way of hosting field days. Mm-hmm. Just lastly, the technology allows for us to join via audio when we do have maybe some rural broadband connectivity issues. For those Correct. Who are listening live on our radio right now on Farmers Weekly website or on podcast, don't think because you don't get a very good broadband connection you can't participate.
Yeah, and there are some interesting ways in which we're able to use things like shared documents and other tools, online polls and chats, so that we can still create a good experience for people, even if they don't have full broadband connections and we can't see a good video stream from them. There are ways to facilitate meetings that are inclusive to people at all levels of broadband that they have available.
That is Jonah Duckle from Abacus Bio. Now, next up, the lack of social interaction with the lockdown period is mounting on our rural people. And, of course, video conferencing may be one of those ways to help, but it doesn't really bring the real thing like a physical hug that releases endorphins or the positive energy of someone you love in the same room. Now, my heart goes out on behalf of rural New Zealand to the Dowling and Todd Hunter family on the tragic loss of Gavin Dowling in the last few weeks. Recently, he's a hardworking Marlborough farmer and a dear family friend of the Perriams. And I just want to be able to mention that, as it was really sad how it had obviously happened, as well as the fact that his beautiful wife Rosie has been in hospital with their critically ill 9-month-old. It couldn't have happened at a worse time, forced to not be able to hug their family members whilst in lockdown. And it's the most devastating thing in the world to go through that. With over $250,000 raised on Give a Little to support Rosie and the family to keep the farm going, it is now more than ever important to embrace gratitude for your family, even though they may be pissing you off right now. We'll talk more about how to end the struggle with gratitude with our next guest after the break. This is Sarah's Country.
New Zealand.
We know things are really tough out there right now.
People are concerned about their health and the health of their loved ones.
People are worried about the economy and when will things get back to normal.
Believe me when I say, us farmers are feeling it too. But now's no time to panic.
Our country can get through this together.
We just need to follow instructions and stay home.
Inside our bubble.
Let's flatten this curve and stop this disease spreading.
Together! You don't need to worry about supermarkets getting low on food. There's plenty to go around for
everyone!
All the countries that could run out of food, New Zealand is not one of them.
Our farmers are world leading.
And we're damn good at what we do, producing high quality food.
We have strong supply lines.
And we're all working hard to keep food on the table.
For your family and for ours.
New Zealand dairy farmers produce enough for 100 million people.
You're in good hands, New Zealand.
You can count on us to keep calm and carry on farming.
We're trusting you to stay at home to keep our country safe.
We are following the rules too.
We can do this.
We're all in this together.
Cheers, New Zealand.
Delicious. Ever wondered where it starts? Does it start with care? Respect. Fresh grass 365 days a year. The truth is, delicious doesn't start in a single moment or with a single ingredient. delicious starts here.
Tell you what I'd be grateful for right now, that beautiful feed from Silver Fern Farms, stuck here on Lincoln Campus, broadcasting to you every night from Monday through Thursday on farmersweekly.co.nz/Sarah across all the social media channels. We're everywhere, live audio, live video, and of course on demand on podcast and YouTube. Now, to check in on our poll talking about gratitude, many Field Days exhibitors this year are not very grateful for the organisation holding onto their site fees until at least the end of the year, until they have decided if they're going to cancel or keep it postponed. What do you think? The poll results are quite outstanding in the fact that no, people do not believe that it's okay for Field Days to hold on to their exhibitor money. Again, if you are listening to this or even on demand, we really want to hear from affected exhibitors on your thoughts around this and how it's affected you, your potential income, but also those undiscovered costs such as your accommodation you can't get back, the marquee deposit you can't get back. We want to really understand the impact that is having on you. Now, one thing I'm really grateful for over the lockdown is a warm house with a fire on every night and a hot meal at the end of a hard-working shift talking to you. I'm lucky my 22-year-old sister and current flattie, Ellie Perriam, has been literally never home this long in the past 12 months with her role as a rep for animal identification company All Flex. And now she's working from home, baking, running the ship, enjoying the pace, and joins us now. Ellie, now, are those boys behaving?
Yep, the fire's on, Sarah. And yeah, the tea's on, so you'll be home to a goodie soon.
What about those bloody dogs? Have they run away again today?
No, Dolly only got let out for 10 minutes because I don't trust her anymore.
No, she's getting into that cocky teenager stage, my miniature schnauzer, and taking off with Tilly, the black cocker spaniel of Ellie's puppy. Now, interesting note before we get into Will to Live and taking care of your sanity over this time, I've learned lots about All Flex. They are not just your standard ear tags and your sheep. Ellie, just what tell us about like the scale that All Flex go across all sorts of animal identification.
Yeah, so a pretty fun fact is All Flex actually started in New Zealand with just a farmer and a jeweler got together. They actually just were making bracelets with girls' names on them, and then they said, oh, well, we should put these in animals' ears, and that's how the brass tag sort of came around. So they're the sort of longest standing, and now they're global. But when I first started, I didn't quite realize that we do pets, microchips, all the kiwis, takaki, flightless bats, and just all and penguins and all sorts of things. I just thought it was just farm animals. And then Steve also enlightened me that we did the All Blacks bag tags last year. So, All Flex is pretty well known, and it's great to be involved in a company that is so diverse.
So you've been at home for a wee while and been flat out on the road beforehand. What is some of the work that you're doing at All Flex that's really essential at the moment?
Just keeping our existing customers happy, really, and just checking up and seeing how everyone is going and well-being, and for me, because I'm just quite new still, only 6 months in, it's a good time to catch up and go back to basics and really learn what you need to and do a lot of trainings. It's quite so we are considered an essential service, so our factory is going. We have half the amount of staff, but we're doing all we can to get orders out just as quickly, and taking really extra caution and cleaning down after all the shifts. So it's really, and mostly we are essential because of the biosecurity of the country.
Now, we've got you on the show, not to talk about All Flex, but I think it's just important to touch base to realise that people wear lots of hats in the rural sector. It's just what we are so good at. but it's particularly to bring Ali on around Will to Live and the rural mental health work that she's been doing over the last couple of years. Will to Live is a mental health charity focusing on the vulnerabilities and pressures of our friends and family in the rural sector. And we took to the road last year to hold 17 events that were brutally honest, but humorous, I would say, as well, with the aim to bring the tools to dealing with your well-being to the table after the great work around awareness that the likes of JK and Doug Avery had done before us. Ali, what type of work have you been doing since the tour, and particularly the importance of what you've been doing on social media?
Yeah, so Will to Live was really like the idea of starting something up so people could get help while they're isolated and have the tools and get the education on how to help themselves when they don't have service and they can't ring someone. So quite prevalent at this time. So since the tour kind of ended, I've tried to be making heaps of new content on just anything to do with health and well-being, and not always just mental health, like your physical health as well. So after work, I'm writing blogs on sleep, nutrition, stress, and just kind of putting them out there each day. So, and we are going to spend, so a lot of people spend more time on their phones and devices now more than ever. So it's really important that we use social media a lot now, so it's getting out there and people know what to do when they're having bad days.
Obviously, I have a behind the scenes look at how you operate, and it is actually quite sad, some of the stories that you get sent into your inbox at Will to Live, and a lot of the posts that you write are generated from a lot of these messages, because obviously if one person's asking, then there's 100 others wondering the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. All my posts are motivated from a question that I've received in my personal inbox or the Will to Live inbox. So if someone's stressed out or has a partner that isn't coping, I write a pretty big chapter reply, and then I go, oh, probably more people need to see that. So then I just sort of copy and paste it and reword it a bit, and put it out there publicly, because there's more than one person struggling with this issue, so you might as well, everyone can see it.
What are some of those tips? I mean, I see that in the the introduction, that you're 22 years old to have created this amount of wisdom. You know, where are you sourcing this sort of information to get it out there? It's obviously not a world of life experience, being with your age, to be able to give these tips over to people.
I personally think my empathy and wanting to help people and relate has come from my experiences and my traumas. And I did write a lot when I was experiencing heaps of trauma, sadness, grief, and anger. So I can relate to people in those feelings, so they don't feel so alone. So every time I reply to someone, I'll always try and make them feel like this is a human experience. You're not weird. You're not alone. We'll get you through it. So so a bit has come from experience, but I'm personally really passionate about health, in particular natural and holistic health. So really deepening and finding the root cause of what the issue is and why you're feeling the way you are, and then kind of opening up pages and making action plans to get yourself better. And I just and I've also kind of stopped calling myself a mental health advocate and really more of a holistic health advocate, because it was the Western medical system, which is still relatively new, that made these mental health and physical health into two different categories, where the mind and body are also connected, that we really need to treat them as one. So whatever you're eating or exercising, it is going to affect what's happening in your brain and what's upstairs. So I suppose I get a lot of my resources just from books. I read a lot. I've got a Gaia account that's like a Netflix, but it's all about health and well-being. If you're into that, I highly recommend. Just talking to people. My sister Kate, natural health practitioner, she educates me a lot. So just really finding them, the resources, and I find them for free everywhere. So, yeah.
What are finally some of the tips that you would say if people are feeling quite trapped and isolated at the moment, probably in not an ideal situation and they can't get away because they're in lockdown? What would you suggest that people do to get through?
Yeah, so farmers would already consider themselves isolated, but it's a different sort of isolation. We can't sort of go and have our release and do the favourite things we do in the weekends and go see our mates at the pub. So it's about sort of being grateful for what you do have. So every night before I go to sleep, I rattle off 3 things that I'm grateful for. And scientifically, it does have a really positive effect on your mental health because we can focus a heap on what we've lost and what we can't go to. So just kind of balancing it out and saying them out loud physically so it really sinks in. So, yeah, one big thing is if you're kind of dealing with a lot of anxiety or you're starting to get really tense in your emotions is learning to diaphragmatically breathe. So meditate when you're lying in bed in the mornings or at night, put your hand on your stomach and feel it go up and down. Do 10 really long breaths. Insight Timer app is one that I use, and you can do 5-minute meditations. It doesn't take long, and it completely calms your whole nervous system. And I highly recommend it because it's little 10-second things that you can do, and it'll change your whole biochemistry, really. A second one would be identify your emotions over this time. So a way that you can do it is just start to record them and try and focus on the facts. So what does my body feel when I see COVID-19 in bold letters on the news? What behaviours am I doing? What emotions are at the front of my mind and what's in the background? So, for example, it might be I feel tension in my body. I'm yelling at people more often. The emotion in the front is anger and the emotion in the back is fear. So it's really just being really self-aware during this time. And when you knuckle it down, you know why you're acting the way you do. That's the start of healing yourself. Another good one would be exercise. And I know if you're already farming, then your job already comes with this perk. But maybe try a different one when you get home, like just having a good stretch or a yoga. You can find everything on free. I go on YouTube, and they're all for free. And just nutrition. So is a biggie. It's a real biggie. So if you're already experiencing anxiety and stress, I would highly recommend reducing the caffeine intake in your body because when you're anxious and stressed, your adrenaline levels are really high already, and caffeine produces adrenaline in your body. And with so much adrenaline and not being able to relax and rest, you won't be able to you have a burnout. So that's just a few things really, and limit your media intake. I deleted all my apps apart from Messenger. So that's how I sort
And
of get through.
you limit COVID-19 at home. We've got a COVID-19 curfew. You're not allowed to talk about anything related to it after a certain time at night. That's a goodie that Ellie's implemented in our house. And in terms of things to be grateful for, I saw Ellie's list the other day and it said that Sarah taught me how to iron. So, I mean, at least I am passing on some of my wisdom because, of course, she's got all that at such a young age. Coming up in Sarah's country to close the show, we're going to head back to Hawke's Bay to catch up with Lockie McGilvray from the Hawke's Bay Rural Advisory Group to learn how they are task forcing the support to our most in need farmers and triaging that support to them
is Sarah's
as soon as
country.
possible.
To New Zealand.
We know things are really tough out there right now.
People are concerned about their health and the health of their loved ones.
People are worried about the economy and when will things get back to normal.
Believe me when I say, us farmers are feeling it too. But now's no time to panic.
Our country can get through this together.
We just need to follow instructions and stay home.
Inside our bubble.
Let's flatten this curve and stop this disease spreading.
Together! You don't need to worry about supermarkets getting low on food. There's plenty to go around for
everyone!
All the countries that could run out of food, New Zealand is not one of them.
Our farmers are world leading.
And we're damn good at what we do, producing high quality food.
We have strong supply lines.
And we're all working hard to keep food on the table.
For your family and for ours. New Zealand dairy farmers produce enough for 100 million people.
You're in good hands, New Zealand.
You can count on us to keep calm and carry on farming.
We're trusting you to stay at home to keep our country safe.
We are following the rules too.
We can do this.
We're all in this together.
Cheers, New Zealand.
Delicious.
Did you see? That's the beauty of live. Everyone can see me making little signs to Joel, and I'm going to get Joel actually on camera. We had all this hoarding going on pre-lockdown. Like the rest of New Zealand didn't know that the sky was blue and not actually falling, let alone that milk actually came from a cow in this country. So I'm going to be honest, I hoarded lots and lots of things from Health 2000. You know, your Lipsies or Astragalus is really good for you. Digital thermometers and anything that can be treats for the man flu for our house anyway. Joel, what about you and toilet paper?
Oh no, we didn't do any toilet paper, but we made sure we got some whiskey on and a big bottle of vodka, and that's hopefully tide us through this. Yeah.
Hey, fun fact, over the weekend, pubs can actually deliver liquor. Because I said, you know, if you want to go another month, give Kiwis, you know, access to Bunnings and some rum and we'll be good as.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'll take that.
You were telling me, though, about toilet paper being returned in the UK.
Oh yeah, it was either in the UK or the US. I saw pictures of a lady with a shopping cart full of paper trying to return it at the check-in desk. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Oh, my farmer flatmate, he's that tight that the few new light bulbs blew and he made me take them back, and then about 6 months later he discovered that they were still hiding in my glove box because I will never be seen dead taking anything back. That's just me. Right, it's time for our last guest of this evening, Mr. Lockie McGilvray, helping farmers on the ground in Hawke's Bay suffering from a devastating season of drought amidst COVID-19, the M. bovis eradication continuing, and a TB movement lockdown as well. So anyone hoarding winter feed out there, it's time to let us know. Lockie now joins us. Can you explain, sir, what you have learnt recently from surveying the needs of your farmers?
Yeah, okay. So thanks, Sarah, and hi, everybody. Yeah, so feed is a major concern, obviously, or lack of it. Water has been as well. I mean, a lot of dams have dried up. And as I was saying the other day to you, Sarah, where the drought was quite severe was on the sort of the hills next to the ranges, which typically have good water, but their springs had dried up because the mountain range was quite low in terms of rainfall. So water was an issue there as well. Springs had dried and dams had dried. But one of the other major concerns that's really sort of raising its head at the moment is sort of the logistics of how can they unload stock? You know, the auction system stopped, so where do they get transparency from prices? We've got the meat companies working hard, but only at 50% capability and capacity. And so that whole supply chain is quite disrupted. And so that's up there with the concerns as well. COVID in itself is not such a problem at this stage. Farmers are used to just working in their little bubble, but that's probably going to come later, maybe.
How are you deploying the troops in terms of action groups on the ground?
Yeah, so what we've done is, to go back, the Rural Support Trust are doing a really good job, and so they've rung a lot of farmers around in Hawke's Bay, and so that gave us a pretty good feel geospatially of where the issues were, and we've got the support of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. I mean, they've been fantastic, and they developed the platform for that geospatial resource, plus staff as well. And we've set up 8 teams of people that are comprised of the Rural Advisory Group, the RAG group, Rural Support Trust, sort of just key members of the community and somebody from the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. And so with these 8 teams, these, a team that's focusing on water, another on feed, another one on logistics, one on welfare, one on animal welfare, one on finance, so the Maori liaison one as well. And we've got a little Wairua one as well, because, they're quite a different community further north and not so affected by the drought as much as the people lower down, but certainly have got M. bovis and a bit of TB issues in there as well. So there's slightly different issues. And so we've got 5 or 8, up to 8 people in each of those teams, and they sort of problem solve for an individual or for the region as well, trying to look at each of the problems, linking through with each of the team leaders so we get some commonality for our resolve. So we're early days, and we've just had that structure in place now for just on a week, I suppose. And, the phones have been busy, and, people are ringing in and asking for help on a range of issues. And it's kind of using that team think mentality that trying to resolve the issues.
MPI.
So, yeah, go on.
Sorry, MPI recently put a considerable amount of money up the game, actually, on the drought assistance package. Are you seeing that start to filter through, Lockie?
Not yet. I mean, I think there's what they've done is they've set up a system that came into play on Thursday last week, where there's 0800 numbers for farmers to ring, 0800 beef and lamb, 0800 dairy NZ, 0800 ag first, and that takes farmers through a step process. So the first stage is, is there an easy resolve here? The second stage is taking them on to a subject matter expert and seeing if they can solve a feed problem or another problem. That's probably a couple of hours on a phone. And then the third stage is actually getting somebody out there to physically help. So the second and third stage hasn't really happened that I'm aware of at this stage, but certainly these people ringing in on the first stage, and they just might be trying to source where they can get feed, where they can get advice, a bit of reassurance, and there's a feedback going back into the Rural Support Trust of those sorts of people. They sound quite vulnerable, and I missed on that conversation that your sister was talking about, but that's quite critical now in rural landscapes. We had an unfortunate event just last week locally here, and so we've just got to be really mindful of the stress that's happening out there.
What would you suggest to people listening that if they want to be able to support from afar, in particular, what feedback are you getting from what feed is available and can be redistributed, or is it just pretty short everywhere?
Yeah, well, it is short everywhere. I mean, except for, you guys in the South Highland, at the bottom of the South Highland there's possibly a bit of food, but it's pretty skint here. Maize available a bit, barley a little bit, sheep nuts not so, silage and hay and baleage is pretty much gone. And, generally, farmers have been able to poke around and get a bit of grazing for cows, but because it's so widespread, that's been lapped up as well. So if there is somebody with a bit of feed, get hold of us, get hold of, Beef and Lamb or the Rural Support Trust, and say, even if it's just, 10 or 20 bales or balers for hay or something, it all helps. I was talking to a farmer today, and he's down to his last 16 bales. The rabbits are taking a cut lunch. He had a bit of rain, but, each blade of grass has got a name on it, and that gets taken pretty quickly. And he's trying to generate a feed to get into the winter and, use a light. It's a bit of a dire situation, really.
And all
So
of,
if someone's got some feed, get hold of us.
You've been in this game for a long, long time, Lockie, with Ag First and of course farming yourself. I mean, have you ever seen the cards sort of stack up like this in your history?
No. And look, my first drought that I went through myself was 82, 83. And I remember some droughts my father had farmed through. And that was a perler. And like a lot of your listeners, they can just rattle them off. You know, next one, 88, 87, 88, and you can just reel them off. And they're all a little bit different. They all start a bit earlier or a bit later or finish a bit later. But this one is unique in that it's across the whole of the North Island, and compounded upon that is sort of movement restrictions with M. bovis and the like. And so, you know, we really have quite a unique situation here that we haven't seen before. You know, we've got really good support, as I said, from the Regional Council, and we've got a good weather forecasting ability in there that look at all the models. And, you know, we hope for these cyclones to come down in Hawke's Bay sort of in that March, April time of the year, and that can give us a good dollop of rain. But there's nothing on the horizon for that. And so we don't see a big rainfall that comes through that's going to be the game breaker for us. But on top of that, Sarah, it's getting too late for that as well. You know, we're into April, it's getting colder. And the guys that got hit with the drought first and worst are on the hills, they're high country. And so, you know, what their feed covers are typically end of April, that's what they have at the end of the winter. Well, you know, they've got no feed covers at all. So, you know, I'm worried.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to obviously end the show on such a negative, especially when people at nighttime have got so much, on their mind, and nighttime's a terrible thing for overthinking things and not sleeping properly, Lockie. What are some of those things you go, you know what, mate, you've got this? Like we're trying to say to the rest of New Zealand, we'll weather together, you know, we'll get through this. How can you unpack that little scrambled brain of theirs and sort of go give them some a glimmer of hope?
Well, look, in my experience, sometimes the problem is not as bad as what I'm thinking it is and worrying about it. And so, you know, I know what it's like to, you know, wake up in the middle of the night and you worry about things that in the light of day, you know, probably not, you know, not as bad. If you do a feed budget, at least that's the way you know where you are, and talk to your financiers, and they will be very accommodating. And then put a team around yourself. So try not take on that whole weight of everything on your own shoulders. I mean, you need to be talking to your spouse and your family members and your neighbours, but even people who aren't so close to you, you know, build this team of trusted people around you, you know, so your financiers and maybe somebody can help you with the feed budgeting, and let them share some of the weight. Don't try and carry it all yourself is kind of what my message would be. And we do get through this, you know, it does rain again and the days get longer and all those sorts of things. So we get through. It's just about managing it until that time happens.
Absolutely.
So
and my last full show podcast, it's an audio version, there's a bloody good song in there. When I hit rock bottom once upon a time, Lockie, far, far away, there's a song called Every Storm Runs Out of Rain by Gary Allan. I suggest anybody who's listening to play that on repeat. It is really, really good. And I've got to agree with Lockie. I had the opportunity to have free funding, which is available to anybody, to talk to a mentor, a business mentor over the weekend, part of the regional business network, as well as spent Sunday doing my cash flow to go, shit, no, I can get through this. And all of a sudden, you just feel so much more supported and in control. And that's just me and Joel. I'm just underplaying it. Of course, there is the availability of free farm consultants like yourself, Lockie, that funding's come through from MPI. Take it up. You know, make the most of this funding that the government's putting out there. I mean, shit, you paid enough taxes. And really just have people walk beside you, because it is actually, as the words of Travis Tritt, it's a great day to be alive, and it will be tomorrow too. And for those of you who are really struggling to be able to help support others around you, there is support for you as well as the people struggling. Get in touch with the good people at Rural Support Trust as well. That's all we've got time for tonight on Sarah's Country. If you've missed any of the previous shows, we'll have them up on my Sarah's Country podcast on demand as soon as possible, as well as the Farmers Weekly YouTube channel as well. Send me your suggestions for guests. I want to hear from you at sarah@perriammedia.com. And let's do this all over again, 7 o'clock, same place, same time tomorrow. Good night, go well, and I want you to write down 3 things you're grateful for. This is Sarah's Country.